Full disclosure before the video starts, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I feel like this is something that has to be said, especially nowadays with things getting more and more expensive, like houses and food and cars and basically everything. Today I wanted to talk about money and relationships. The reason I wanted to talk about this thing is because I was listening to this podcast called the Waveform podcast when I was home one day, and I remember hearing them talk about Android users apparently getting less dates because they use an Android phone, and I was like, let me look that up. And sure enough, tons of articles from various different sites all reporting on it. According to this video posted by Bloomberg on Twitter, 70% of people prefer to date an iPhone user. 2 out of 5 people say that the model of the phone impacts the first impression. And 1 out of 3 men think a cracked screen shows a lack of self-care. I'm sitting there reading this and I was like, how shallow can we be? How terrible has the human race become that the little computer in our pockets dictate how we look at people? Like, how far have we fallen as a society that the color of the bubble that pops up on your phone dictate how we feel about someone? How shallow is it that we would prefer a blue bubble versus a green bubble, but we don't care about what the text is saying? What's the point of texting if we're just going to disregard the text and only look at the color of the bubble? Texting is just a huge waste of time then. One thing I've realized as I've gotten older is the amount of people that are in relationships for monetary gain. I know a couple people whose parents hate each other. They despise their guts, but they're staying in the relationship because there's money involved and they don't want to split the money if they get divorced. I know people personally who are with their significant other because their significant other has a good job or a good salary or whatever it is. It's not like I'm hearing these stories or reading them on Reddit. I know people like this, and to be honest, it's fucked up. You're basically leading a person on that actually loves you for who you are, hopefully, and you're just with them for their money and their status. But you know what? I don't really blame people. I don't blame them because I think it all goes back to the hunter-gatherer times when people were just becoming people. People flocked to the person that had and owned the most resources, the most cows, the most wheat, the most logs for fire, and now it's the same thing for money. People want a sense of security, and nowadays, as fucked up as it sounds, trust me, I know, money brings security. Having money opens doors for you that wouldn't be there otherwise. I'll give you an example. I was browsing on Reddit one day on that personal finance one that I always talk about, link down below, along with all the other things that I talked about in this video. And basically this person was having issues with the bank. I'm not 100% sure what was going on, but they were either renewing their mortgage or it had to do something with investments or something, and the bank was just giving them the runaround. They were loafing, they were messing with the person's inquiries, they were basically wasting the person's time. To make the long story short, the person ended up calling one of their family members and asked them to go to the bank with them because the family member was with the bank and they had a lot of money invested. Within 15 minutes, they were in and out of the bank because their family member has a lot of money invested at the bank. So that was an instance where the bank saw that the person that was coming in had a lot of money, so they knew not to mess around. That's why, to be honest, I don't blame people for following the money because it all just goes back to our primal instinct. You could say the same thing when it comes to finding partners nowadays. If you haven't seen this video up here, I would recommend watching it because it talks about what to do before you get into a relationship and stuff like that. But back to what I was saying. I know people that didn't get accepted by their significant other's parents because of their job title or education level. This guy that I used to work with at my last job said, he was talking to this girl, and actually it was his girlfriend. He wasn't just talking to her, and he loved her. He told me that he was gonna ask her to marry him and they were gonna move out and all this and all that, and he had this whole plan in his head. Anyway, to make a long story short again, he met the girl's parents because they were keeping it a secret for a while because she knew that her parents wouldn't accept him because of his societal status. Anyway, they ended up going through this whole thing with her parents because her parents wanted her to marry someone that made 6 figures, his words, not mine, and basically they broke up because her parents didn't accept him due to the amount of money that he was making. And he's there telling me this story, and you can just see it in his face. Like, he was so sad, man, and it was just fucked up. But hearing and reading about all these stories has really put into perspective about how thankful I should be for my girl. And disclaimer, for the record, I am. I'll be the first person to tell you that I'm not the best looking, and I don't have the most money in the world. I actually don't have a lot of money at all. But one thing that I'll always commend my girl for is sticking with me through the tough times. Times when I had no job, I wasn't going to school, I wasn't doing anything, to the times when I was working nights, the times that I was doing things that I shouldn't have. She stuck with me. I remember telling her not to expect much of me in terms of making a lot of money or having a good job, because I didn't want to put in the effort at the time. But she said she has no issues with that. As long as I was putting in the effort in our relationship, she would be doing the same thing. I've realized that I should also be thankful that her parents accepted me for who I am. Her mom and dad didn't scold me for not going to school or anything like that. They didn't say, you can't date my daughter because you're not going to school or because you don't make X amount of dollars. They've helped me get jobs. They've given me a place to rest my head when I needed it. They've kept me fed, and all this without judgment. I feel like that's the most important thing in today's society, especially when it comes to relationships, the lack of judgment. My girl's parents could have easily said, I don't want you hanging around this guy because he didn't go to school or he isn't making such and such per year, but they didn't. They welcomed me with open arms, and I'm forever indebted to them. To end off the video, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think the word love has gotten lost in terms of relationships over the past, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. But to be fair, you know, maybe I was just naive because I was like 20 years ago. So I have no experience when it comes to relationships 20 years ago. Either way, like I said, I don't blame people for wanting security because it's a good thing to have. You know that your partner makes a decent amount of money and that you guys will be fine should you lose your job or whatever, something happens. Yes, it's a shallow thing to say, but that's just the way of the world. And to be clear, I'm not saying that if you and your partner make 6 figures per year that you don't love each other. I'm not saying that at all. I think people can love each other regardless of the money you make, but I don't think we should be selecting partners based on the amount of zeros in their bank account or the color of the bubble that pops up when they text us. And as always, thanks for watching.